Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll just be starting in a few minutes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give everybody a few minutes here to join us live, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Priya Aggarwal, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Paper. For those of you that may not know the company, we partner with K-12 schools throughout North America, giving every student an equal opportunity to excel academically. Our educational support system provides learners with unlimited 24/7 homework help, writing feedback, and study support. Our tutors deliver on-demand, one-to-one academic support in 4 languages across 200 subjects. So every student has access to expert help exactly when, where, and how they need it. We're really excited to continue our discussion series in collaboration with SITE, focused on scaling one-to-one experiences for every student. During these, we've been discussing various implications of delivering one-to-one experience, including cost, infrastructure, as well as equity considerations. For today's panel, we'll be discussing how you can solidify and modernize your EdTech infrastructures to really allow for that anytime, anywhere learning that so many of us are experiencing. For the conversation, I'm really excited to bring together Kris Boneman, Director of Educational Technology at Bonita USD. Hi, Kris. Lee Lewsadder, Chief Technology Officer at La Cañada USD. Hi, Jamie. Tam Nguyen, Director of Technology Services at Orange Unified. And Matt Penner, Chief Technology Officer at Verde Unified School District. Hi, Tam and Matt. Good morning. Before we dive in, just a couple of quick logistics here. The attendees are in listen-only mode, but we do really encourage you to participate in the conversation, send us thoughts and questions through the chat feature, and maybe start by just telling us where you're dialing in from and what your role is. So let's get started with a quick round of introductions. I'm sure most of these people do not need introductions, but it'd be great to hear a little bit about your roles, districts, as well as what one-to-one student experiences look like today in your community. Jamie, do you want to start us off?
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Lee Lewsadder and Chief Technology for La Cañada Unified. I'm so excited to be here today with our amazing panelists and some of my friends. So this is great. A little bit about our district. We are in North Los Angeles, a tiny little district. There are 5 schools and we have about 4,000 students. And for us, one-to-one has been an interesting journey. I still remember sitting at Q several years ago listening to a one-to-one session and leaving with a list of like must-dos and how to plan this and how to roll this out. And for us, it started with funding challenges. And so we are a bring your own Chromebook district where students starting in 5th grade bring their own devices to school. And we sort of added year by year over the past 6 years. So now we are fully one-to-one 5th through 12th grade, and currently evaluating what our K-4 experience is going to look like. Since we sent home all our classroom devices during the pandemic, what does that look like for our youngest learners? So that's a challenge we're looking to solve next. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jamie. Matt?
Yeah, my name is Matt Penner, the Director of Awesomeness, as I like to say it, for technology for the Verde Unified School District. We are located, if you could fly, about an hour east of LA, hour north of San Diego, so right where those two intersect. If you're driving, then you're stuck in traffic, and then multiply that by 3. We have about 20,000 students, and we started our one-to-one journey 7-8 years ago when we jumped on this thing called Google and Chromebooks. We started slowly ramping up into a point where about 3.5 years ago, we actually had one-to-one devices in carts for all of our students. And then the year after that, we did an official take home. And so all of our students, grades 1 through 12, do take their device home. They have it over the summer break. And hopefully, if everything works well, we don't see it but once every 4 years, because that's when they get their new one. They bring it to class charged every day, hopefully. Been a great program, although with COVID, everything got thrown out the window. And now we've got kindergartners taking home devices, preschool parents taking home devices. It's been quite a whirlwind, but exciting to see what we're all able to do with this. And I love being with this team. I mean, these people are wonderful.
Thank you, Matt. Kris?
Hi, and thank you for having us all here. And it does feel a little bit like family, having everybody here together. And we all have been through so much in the last year that is so similar. But I'm from Bonita Unified School District, again, Northern LA County. I'm actually, though, a little bit east of La Cañada along the 210 freeway. And if you're taking the freeway junctions, it's the 210 57 freeway interaction, which you may have visited, Raging Waters or other. We're full of fun places here in San Dimas, California. We have about 10,000 students we serve, and we've been going along pretty well. We have not done take home one-to-one up until the COVID opportunity to do that. We were one-to-one in the classroom. We actually had about 11,000 devices and 10,000 kids, because it took more devices if you were keeping them in carts than you needed. But that actually helped quite a bit when we had to pivot as quickly as we had to pivot. And just the logistics of that was a crazy time, and 2 weeks of mayhem trying to get things out when that wasn't part of our system. But that's what this has all been about. And it's what education, I think, does the best, is we cope with what we are handed and we deal with it, all the way to the teacher's classroom, where if I had gone to them and told them 2 years ago that in a year I'd really, really like you all to try some distance learning, they would have laughed me out of the place. So, and they've all been able to do it, and they've done a fabulous job of it. And I'm just proud of all of the excellence, really, that's shown through this process. So I'm looking forward to hearing everyone else's story too. So I'm just here to come along with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Kris. And Tam, finally.
Hi there. Good morning, everyone, and honored to be here. So I'm Tam Nguyen. I'm the IT director at Orange Unified School District. So we are about 4 miles east of Disneyland. That's probably the easiest way to share that. And we have 28,000 students. We have 40 school sites. As far as where we were with one-to-one, we really were not there with one-to-one at all. We had a pilot school, and that's kind of where the support ended. So before COVID, we were, I think, 0.7 to 1. So kind of there, but at the same time, it was very disparate. So different schools were doing different things and different ecosystems. So you really couldn't align, the PD and training, or even the tools together in a cohesive manner. So I know that was a very difficult thing for teachers and the curriculum staff to grasp. But with COVID. I think all of us here definitely made lemonade out of lemons. I think we've got a pretty decent story to share and a growth story. So although we weren't there like Matt and his team was, years ago, I remember, listening fondly to his story. COVID definitely helped us to finally get there.
Fantastic. Thank you. I mean, just from the introductions, so much has happened this past year for each of you and your districts. And a common theme we're hearing with everybody we talk to is the flexibility and the resilience of everyone involved in all of this change. So kudos to all of you for handling this. Jamie, I'd love to direct the next question, starting with you. I'd love to give the audience here just a quick understanding of what do you think of when you think of tech infrastructure? How do you define it? What are some of the building blocks of infrastructure, and how has that evolved and expanded as the use of technology has become even more prevalent today in schools?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, this is something that I think about often just because of what's changed in the last year. And also, a piece of background information I didn't share is that I came out of the classroom into the IT role and have an English degree. So that's my training. So infrastructure, I guess with that in mind, I've always approached things as a teacher and trying to understand and question and improve my own understanding. And one of the things I remember as I transitioned from the classroom to the IT role was just really being mindful of all the building blocks that are a part of this environment. So for me today, I, firstly understand infrastructure to mean, what are the pieces of hardware or the security pieces that we have in place to kind of support keeping school running. And so those are the obvious pieces. But I think what we've learned this year is to kind of ask a better question, like what are the pieces of your school that really help support instruction? And that is now what I count as infrastructure. So that's expanding it to think about the staff that we have, expanding it to think about what training programs we have in place. So yes, it is the hardware. It is everything that we need to keep school up and running, but the scope has definitely increased. And I find that most interesting. So I like to kind of audit our infrastructure again by saying what pieces are in place to support instruction. And also to add even more to that is that we've really shattered the bell schedule. That no longer is a boundary. And with that, we've also shattered the perimeter of our learning institution. So we're in this place where learning, as you mentioned, just the title of this webinar, is anytime, anywhere. And our infrastructure has expanded, so much so that we're partnering with unusual things. Like I now meet with City Hall and talk about our city's infrastructure. So that's been an interesting change and very exciting over the past year.
Thank you, Jamie. That's I think you said it the best I've heard it. The shattering of the school bell is going to stay in my mind as an image for quite a while now. So, while I'm sure there were so many challenges, such an incredible evolution and expansion. A lot has gone into fine-tuning, optimizing, modernizing the infrastructure in light of everything that's happened. Many of you were already on that path, but obviously a lot of that just got massively brought in from a timeline perspective. So Tam, maybe over to you first, talking a little bit about what are some of those major areas of investments that have allowed you to really optimize and modernize the tech infrastructure at Orange?
Yeah, definitely. 28,000 students, I wouldn't say that we're large, but we're mid-pack there, and it's definitely a big ship to steer. And so as far as the technology that we had to prepare us for a pandemic and remote learning as such, we weren't quite there. Definitely we weren't quite there with one-to-one as well in the hardware bits. I'm gonna, as Jamie talked about the building blocks, and there's plenty of, I'll definitely start with the foundational infrastructure building blocks, kind of the classical definition of infrastructure. The big and main thing was that we didn't have a one-to-one, and that obviously quickly changed when everyone grabbed a device, headed home. And then there was a gap with additional devices. I think all of us quickly found that devices were in high demand and in short supply. And I think one of the amazing things that came out of this, again, with partners we'd never considered before, is being able to roll out PC devices, take home to students. That would have gave me a heart attack before COVID. And with Intune, you know, and the new way that you can manage PCs, we're able to and have been handing out, you know, over 10,000 PC devices to students happily. They, you know, teachers, the parents, the students, they love the device. And so all of a sudden a PC is a Chromebook, and that is amazing. So it's definitely the hard work of the team and the research that they did, and you know, technology catching up that made this possible. So you know, those were some of the investments that we did. You know, security is a big piece of how we're able to lay that infrastructure so that students can learn remotely. The strangest thing is that we didn't have email for students. You know, being one, you know, the 4 C's being there, ironically, there was really no way of them communicating to each other. So one of the great things that came out was that we were able to not only give email to students, but email that's not in a walled garden. So they can actually email anyone, you know, to each other, to teachers, to outside of the organization. But of course, we didn't want to have that humongous liability either. So we put technologies in place to monitor those emails. That's really been very interesting from a really just student well-being point of view, because that's brought up a lot of concerns around bullying, around depression, and suicide. And you know, our other teams in the district are able to provide that intervention. And so it's extremely heartwarming to see the intersection of where technology and the human aspects come together. So, you know, on top of all of this, as an IT department, we're not here to support 24/7, and definitely it's been a struggle to be at home. Some of the things that infrastructure-wise that's not going to leave us is this remote collaboration, not only for students, but for staff members as well. You know, I would admit that some of our staff didn't really use email that well before COVID. And now, you know, they're thrusted into this this environment, which is not going to leave us, which is all this virtual collaboration. And one of those things that we were able to spin up very quickly through partners was giving a public phone number to every teacher through, in this case, Microsoft Teams. So parents were able to call directly to the teacher to collaborate. This was something that obviously we have a Cisco phone system, and people were not able to, teachers were not able to contact parents and vice versa. So we definitely opened up communication through this effort. And one last thing I'd like to kind of touch base on is just the support infrastructure has expanded. So during this time, we actually, as you can imagine, going from supporting 3,000 staff members to now 14,000 additional households, we were actually able to contract out for help desk support. So the families are able to call in for technical support. We also, what we affectionately call, run a AT&T store. So every day between 12:30 and 3:30, we invite teachers and the community students to come in and do tech support and or swap out a device if they need. So I know that you know, these are definitely more of the technical building blocks, infrastructure, you know, which obviously lay ground to all of the great things that our instructors are doing within the classroom. So
Amazing. It's amazing how much it's not just about the devices, and it is so much about, and also not just about the hardware or the internet line. I mean, like, there's so much more to it in terms of the support that you can provide, in terms of the training, in terms of the safety and security, and how much of that technology can support and enable as you modernize that. So thank you for sharing that. Matt and Kris, would love to give you both an opportunity to add anything as we talk about the building blocks of tech infrastructure, and before we move into other areas of our discussion.
I do see a direct connection into everything Tam's saying. We're a district of about 10,000 students, which suddenly we were serving about 30,000 people with all the people in the homes that now we were having to do. So it was a complete upscale in a way that we would have never considered. I am super lucky. I'm the director of educational technology, and we're just a team of 4. But we're around, accountability, assessment, every bit of software that folks have used. That is our focus. But I work with a CTO and a IT department, and we've never had to be closer. I mean, literally, we are stepping on each other's toes and carrying each other along the way, because it is so important for us to be in sync for it. And we shifted from a team that we worked super well, and we were focused on the classroom, we were focused on the teacher, and we had to shift to, okay, now we're going to expand that to a level, and we're going to invite grandma and grandpa to call us and get us direction, and we're going to leverage it. And then how do we support our teachers in that transition as well, with using those communication tools? We uprighted Zoom in August, which many of our teachers had never been on a Zoom by themselves. Mm-hmm. We used to do PD trainings where we would call you all into a room and we would Zoom together. That's how hard we thought it was going to be. And now we have kindergartners launching Zoom and doing, so it was transformational and empowering, but also a little scary. That's a real thing. This was a lot of movement very quickly. And having those supports in place, some of that will never change. The way we deliver PD, I think, is going to always now be offered in these variations so that people can jump in and do it where they're at and don't have to commute. I do hope we get to be with people again. That's my hope. I look forward to sitting in the room with all of you. But I think we're going to offer more options for families that are unable to make connections or need to jump on from their office. Those connections have now been made, and those will only make us stronger. It's a really, it would have taken us probably a decade to get there without a pandemic. But because we all had to move at the speed of lightning, I call it that, that March 13th where we ran for our lives, and then we regrouped and we figured out what we were going to do. And it is an empowering thing when you can work together and shift. But without all those pieces working together, it just doesn't work. And we will continue to build on those. I look forward to the list of things that we just can't let go of. That the things that we may not have made the choice for it. We actually launched an LMS, which many districts had to do. It's something we talked about for years, a learning management system for us to be in sync. We had never considered kindergarten being a part of that process, and yet it needed to be in order for us to sustain how we were going to operationalize things. How do you send families to one place? When we use, the number of tools we use is just out of this world. And even though you would have thought we would have slowed down with that, no, because people needed things and we had to do it. So really hanging things on things like our LMS and hanging them on the things, single sign-on, having those operationally made it possible for us to actually leverage all of those tools, use them, and allow teachers to keep that autonomy that I think is so important in making them feel effective.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Kris. I mean, what a great thing to dive into that many of you have commented on, right? Like Jamie in the chat, you put this notion of moving from 200 classrooms to 2,500 homes. That's such an interesting data point when you think about how many individuals and people you're supporting, and starting to really talk about not just the broadening of the communication lines between all of those, but I'm sure each of you have had to think about what type of tools and support and services are available as you cater to and customize the ed tech services across your different stakeholders. And many of you have touched upon some of those examples. Matt, I'd love to give you, putting you a little bit on the spot there, but would love to give you a sense, a chance to share a little bit of how you have catered to different stakeholders, from your staff to your teachers to your parents to your students, and any examples from your district.
Yeah, we'd love to. Obviously, when everyone got sent home, I think for us, March 13th was the day that the edict came down. You will not come to work. IT, we all met. We said, okay, you know, we're still on the clock, just as our teachers were, and most everyone in the district, even though we were working from home now. But we really went through, what do our teachers have in place? What do our students have in place? What does IT need to help out with? And then, of course, you know, we had to think about the business office. You know, payroll still has to go through. Checks still have to be paid. And so it was kind of a triage moment where, you know, we're going through our various departments and really realizing who needs what infrastructure and devices to do their job, no matter what it was. Much as Tam had said, we had a fairly robust infrastructure, and we've all invested in that over the years. But when you go home, you can't rely on that. And so we had a lot of staff who, just in their job role, they were on a desktop all day, and suddenly now they needed to work from home. And so how do we allow that? A lot of what we think of in IT is we try to allow our staff, students, teachers to do their job. They're not a techie. If they are, wonderful, but it's not their job. And I like to say, you know, a teacher, it seems like the overhead of how do I teach? You know, now we're dealing with, I got to log into Google Classroom, and I got to schedule a Zoom and put all the settings correctly so that my kids are safe. And where's that latest app that we're using coming from? How do I do this remotely and record a screencastify or something like that? That none of that has anything to do with actually providing instruction. And so I feel like IT's job is to take that overhead and make it as minimal as possible. You know, so now we got people that we haven't classically worked with. You know, Kris was talking about working between IT and ed tech. That's wonderful. And we have a fairly decent relationship. I feel like COVID's really made it stronger, but we haven't really worked as closely with a lot of our business team. We support them, but generally when they're working in the office every day, you know, we make sure their systems are running, they've got access to the files they need, and we support them in however they need. But suddenly now you've got your entire fiscal team or HR working from home. How do we get subs? How do we make sure teachers are able to work? What do we do with COVID situations? IT kind of had to help out with all of that. So we did similar to what, like Tam said, we created a whole phone system we didn't have before. One thing that we've also heavily made use of is we really saw kind of like what Jamie so wonderfully said in the beginning, infrastructure is that whole end-to-end picture now, right, of providing an instruction. So we realized we have a lot of tools. How do we consolidate that? Now you've got a parent with 3 kids, 2 of them may be in middle school and high school, each with 6, 7 classes. You know, as a parent trying to help while you're working on your own, making sure your kids are in the right classes, they're up on homework, logging into 18, 20, 30, 40 different programs just is not sustainable. And similar with our teachers too. So one thing that was really nice is it really taught us to consolidate. We have a lot of great apps and we still make use of them, but we had to say, we are a Google Classroom district. We've got a great dashboarding system. We use ClassLink. Every single tool you use in your classroom has to go in ClassLink. That way, when the kids log in and the teachers log in, everything they see is right there. We've expanded that to all of our business staff, all of our staff. In fact, it always was there, just no one ever knew about it. And so, you know, if you're in payroll and you log into ClassLink, you see the district webpage, you see your Outlook and your email, your Google accounts, you see your online training, your information about, you know, calling in sick, all that's right there. We just kind of trained everybody. This is where you go for everything in the entire district. And so I think helping to consolidate and figure out what tools we were using and branding that in a way that it was accessible really helped cut out a lot of that overhead, again, for staff, teachers, and students. And then along with that, that became our go-to. And so when we signed up with paper, it showed up on ClassLink, and it was, I think we signed up with paper and we had it up and running within 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. People hadn't even heard of it yet, and the tool was already becoming available to them as we were making announcements, because like Kris was saying, it was so much, so fast. How do we do that in a way that's successful and not just causing more chaos? When we had that, well, you know, it's that whole concept of, you know, if you see a kid's having a hard time in class, you can visually see that. You can't see that over a Zoom very well. So we were really concerned about that. And as they were saying, you know, I think Tam was brought up just their mental health, their state. Are they doing okay? What are we doing about that? And then one of the students said, hey, you know, we would love to be able to have an anonymous mental health referral system. And the district already had some, but they were clunky and provided by kids are like, we just want a straight, quick, easy form where I can say I need help. So they created it. That came out of one of our high schools. We threw it on ClassLink. Everyone had it. And we're like, wow, you know, this is amazing. And now we're pulling data from ClassLink. We're pulling data from that. We're pulling data from paper. We're pulling data from some of these other tools. And without that ability to see how a student's doing right there in front of you, you know, if he's not answering a question, is it okay? Are they kind of behind? Are they having a hard time at home? You can't see any of that now. When the camera's turned off and they're not responding on chat, it kind of makes you wonder. And that's a lot of anxiety on the teachers and obviously the parents. So I think what our district has been focused on is how do we consolidate our tools, get everyone really proficient at using them, and then start making use of that data so that we can do health checks, you know, and call the parents at home. Hey, I haven't seen, you know, Lisa in class the last few days. How's it going? Is everything fine there? So I think from infrastructure, like Jamie was saying back in the beginning, there's so much more to it. And I think COVID kind of showed us that. And everyone's been flying by the seat of their pants, and it hasn't been easy. And I will say, you know, all of us have had our bumps and bruises, but these other three individuals here, we've learned a lot from on our own district. We all learned a lot from each other. And I certainly won't say the crisis has been a good thing, but I think we've all learned some incredible things from it, things that won't change, that we'll take on from here as we go. So.
Incredible. Thank you, Matt. What some really great stories there. Students creating tools for each other is a first I've heard. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think it's incredible when everybody bands together to find you know, a solution to problems, and nobody knows what some of those challenges are except for the users that are going through them. And for like what I've seen of talking to so many of you is, you know, how involved students and parents and teachers are getting in helping figure out what is the best way to provide that academic support and education to students, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. And so it's always heartwarming to hear those types of stories. I'd love to start talking a little bit about ROI and funding and all of that. I'm going to actually break this into two separate topics. Let's start with some of the evaluation of the investments you've already made. How do you think about, was it worth it? Was it not worth it? What are some of Matt started talking about data points, right? What are some of the metrics and data points that you're looking at? And then part two, we'll talk a little bit about what does it mean for the future and the next phase of investment. So let's focus on first talking about evaluating investments. Jamie, do you want to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. You know, I think as anytime we bring in a new system, I sort of had this checklist that I would go through in my head of, okay, first, does it integrate with what we have? You know, that was always the big piece. How does this new piece of the puzzle fit in, and all of those pieces? Then it was looking at cost, always, you know, checking privacy policy if they're looking at a system. And then I'm always curious about, you know, the innovation and the roadmap. So anytime I'm onboarding, whether it's, again, a piece of hardware and I'm looking at a new firewall, I want to ask them what's on your roadmap, what innovations are coming down, or if it's a new system. I remember meeting, Matt had mentioned ClassLink, and I've talked to the CEO. I've also talked to the CEO at Paper, and just like, what's next, what's coming, you know, are you going to sync up and be as innovative as we are? So those are always kind of the questions. And then lastly, what does support look like? How am I going to get help when I need it, whatever piece I'm onboarding? But I think now the evaluation, once we've adopted, it's, you know, what does the use case look like? Is this benefiting? But I also really like to think about it in terms of a question of what problem is it solving? We purchased or bought or acquired whatever this piece of hardware is or software was at a specific moment in time to solve a problem. And so reevaluating, is that still the problem we're having? Is a new problem coming up? And so my specific process for this is I created, you know, especially after this year, we have so many systems we've onboarded, so many things we're worried about, so many problems we're trying to solve. I created a Google Calendar that lists all the contracts for everything that we've acquired in the, you know, past 6 or 7 years since I've been here, and, you know, due dates. And so now my process is, as that comes up, I try to evaluate, are there new systems that are better? Is it time to check in with the owner of the company? Are there competitors? Or are they still aligned with the goals that I have in my district? And in making sure you give yourself enough time for those evaluations, because I've run into plenty of times where I haven't set that time aside to reevaluate and do the data checks and see if it's being used. And there are really good tools out there that help you do that. So I think, again, that's my process, is just reevaluating, is it still a current need? And also, what I've discovered this year is that we have a lot of redundancy because we were acquiring very rapidly to solve a specific problem for a small set of users. And so now we find ourselves with multiple systems that kind of do the same thing. So I think this process now is going to be, this summer, hopefully we can peel back and see which ones were high use, which ones made a difference, and which ones we really want to continue partnering with.
Fantastic, Jamie. Thank you. Anybody else to add on to the how you evaluate investments? Tam, I saw you come off of mute, so I'll have you go first. And then Kris saw the same thing, so I'll let you go after Tam.
Yeah, just some things to add there. Again, kind of looking back at the investments that we've made previous to the pandemic, and kind of seeing different ways that we're using technology now. Does it make sense? So one of those aspects that we've been looking at is, does it make sense to buy high-powered devices for CTE, SolidWorks, Adobe, and whatnot, or is it better to kind of jump onto app streaming, from Azure, AWS, where any Chromebook, iPad, PC, low-cost student device can now be this robust system with a huge graphic card behind them. And we've been looking at that ROI and realizing it's much cheaper to do that than to invest in a lab over 5 years. Not to mention, can we use a lab anymore? How many students can you shove in there and whatnot? So, I think that the ROI metrics are definitely all over different systems, unfortunately. That's definitely not a well-integrated, area just yet. I know that there are quite a few companies that are trying to integrate that all together in maybe one pane of glass. However, it's not there. I will say that since we use ClassLink as well, and so it's been a success. But one of the great things that initially when we jumped on board, we didn't realize was how many metrics we can get out of that. So we are seeing, and this is guided purchases throughout the district, not only in curriculum, but in the business group as well. Like, hey, did you know that no one's using this app you're paying 150 grand a year for? So, we've definitely cut quite a few apps because of that. Again, it's not the best. It's not like, okay, this is exactly 54 minutes used in a day. But it does show that, hey, you know what, you've only got 3,000 logins for the whole year versus other programs have 600,000 logins. So, considering those ROIs, At least nowadays, since we're using more online tools, we could really evaluate and see which investments are making the most sense or not.
Yeah, that's great.
Tam, I was just going to jump in there. Sorry, Kris. I just love that you pointed out the note about the device and whether or not it still makes sense, because we've been a strict, we have one device for teachers. This is the only option you have. And now I'm like, maybe we just let them choose, because we've discovered we can handle anything. We can manage anything. We've proven that. So we've always had this certain refresh cycle for teacher devices, and maybe that doesn't matter anymore. Maybe it is, you can choose which one you want. And when you're looking at the return on investment, some last longer than others, even if it's a more upfront cost. So that's super interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. So thank you.
Kris?
Connecting into both of those, really looking at those and evaluating what has been used, I think it's an ongoing challenge for all of us. And just one more piece of that is really digging in with the stakeholders individually. I sometimes, even though I can see the usage, I don't understand the usage. And really understanding how they're using it and why they're using the different programs. Sometimes there is a better way to do things even. And if we don't keep in those conversations and keep asking those questions, even sometimes the way we roll something out isn't the way it's meant to be rolled out. I say, with paper specifically, I know that it's supposed to be a classroom and a teacher kind of partnership as they do it, but our need was just a little bit different, and you guys adapted to it very well. Our teachers did not want one more thing to come across their desk, so we really focused on our counselors putting it out and having those resources go to our families directly. It really, that will be re-looked at as we come back and things open up, and how can we leverage it slightly differently. But really understanding what our stakeholders needed and wanted was important to everything happening as it has right now. Understanding our parents not wanting to have 7,000 places to go look for and understand where passwords are kept, or the magic of the password, because so many were being written on the desk and being, kept at the, so how are we coming up with solutions that don't require that anymore? If you can know how to log into your computer, you're going to get to everything that you need to get to. But all of those components that we've worked on for so long just became so much more important as we, moved into this distance working, learning mode. And we won't let go of those. Those are the things that have made us better. We know it's more effective when they come back to the classroom, etc. Having our teachers monitor computers and know what kids are doing, that was such a challenge for us. We had systems in place that worked in the classroom. They did not work when you got to your house. We couldn't see. So that was a challenge we had to find. And we ended up using GoGuardian as our solution for that. But that was transformational for our teachers to have that access again, because they could Zoom with you, but you couldn't tell what was happening on the screens and know that kids were in the right place and following along. So all of those different components and really paying attention to what those stakeholders' needs are will help us decide which are the right things, which are the wrong things. And the conversations will happen to promote the ones that work. That's my other thing with 13 different school sites. Some things have taken off and some things have not. So really discussing why those are and how are they able to leverage it differently. So it is a bunch of data that needs to be assimilated, and we need to make sense of it as we go forward.
Yeah, this is great. You guys started off the conversation talking about infrastructure supporting instruction, but so much of the evaluation is really far beyond some of that instruction, right? It is so reliant on the collaboration and feedback from your stakeholders, and the investment that everybody has put into opening those lines of communications with those stakeholders is actually allowing you to get the feedback directly from them. I think the symbiotic relationship and loop of so many of these conversations is truly fascinating. I'm going to remind the audience, if you do have questions or thoughts, we're coming up on our last 1 or 2 questions here. So if you have anything for the panelists, I don't know when we'll have all of these amazing minds together in one place. So ask away in the chat and we'll get to your questions shortly. I want to spend a little bit of time on what's next. Obviously, the education industry is being faced with an unprecedented amount of funds available and a lot of conversations. We had a whole discussion about this last week on one of these panels around cost and how you evaluate cost and what you spend on. But I'd love to pose the same question to you. As you think about what's next and continuing to evolve and modernize your infrastructure, how do you think about the prioritization of the funds that need to be spent? What do you look at and how do you decide for your district where that money should be spent, especially since so much of it is one-time investments and you need to sort of think about that longer term ROI on that one-time investment. So Matt, do you want to kick us off here?
Sure, I'd love to. One thing my superintendent said to all of us kind of near the beginning of all this was when the funding started coming out, he said, I want to prioritize all of our funding on things that'll actually create transformative change. Let's try not to buy things just to get us through the crisis. And obviously we and most other districts had to spend some of that money on let's just get our heads above water. Now I know a lot of districts are putting a lot of investment into bringing kids back, and that's wonderful. They're putting investments in areas that are helping us through this, but our mindset definitely would want to be how much of the things we're buying are we going to be using next year? And so that's where he was kind of always pushing us, and I love Jamie's quote there, break the bell schedule. What are we buying that's going to help us continue to break the bell schedule? And I know when we first started getting Chromebooks in carts, it was before the crisis, we would go into classrooms and see them sitting in a cart. You know, like, why are they doing that? You know, get these out. What are you doing? And they don't have to be used all the time, but we just saw this sense that, oh, well, we only pull it out when my kids are taking a quiz, or we're only pulling them out when assessment's coming. No, this is a device for anything. Let your kids collaborate with each other. And we started seeing some really inventive schools. One of our schools said, we're not doing handwritten book reports anymore. They forced all the kids to stand up in front of class, but they would do it in groups. They would do presentations. They would take their Chromebooks outside and record each other. They're taking pictures in elementary school, like, okay, we're learning about flowers and all the different parts. I want all of you to go outside, take some pictures of flowers, throw it in a Google Doc, collaborate with each other. And that was really fun to see. And then when we started sending them home, we had a lot of people, well, how are we going to take them back in the summer? Well, what if the kid isn't doing strictly schoolwork on this Chromebook? And we were like, we want them to use these. And so it created a lot of great discussion. You know, what is our internet filter blocking that shouldn't be blocked? We'd see kids, you know, doing college applications on their Chromebooks because they had it at home. We had some parents applying for jobs because they had Chromebooks at home. We had kids that were watching the latest, you know, amazing guitar solo on a video. And is that really the best use for educational dollars? You know, why is this kid on YouTube? And we find out he's got a guitar and he loves taking music lessons and he's learning how to do this solo and stuff. And that was something at least a lot of our kids simply had no access to when they went home. And so what I would say is certainly now is we're seeing a lot of discussion. What do we do when we come back? And I'm seeing a few districts saying, well, how do we get these back? And how do we get these into our libraries and carts? And so I would say one thing we've stressed in our district is if we're buying anything, and again, Jamie's quote there, what problem is it solving? Is that still our problem? But our third question is, how do we continue to use this next year? And I'll be totally upfront. There's a couple of things we bought that we won't use next year. They just aren't applicable. But there are tools like Go Guardian. We're looking at buying that right now. I wish we had bought it a year ago. but we are going to realize how to use that in the classroom next year. We've got lots of great group sessions and teachers who are really innovative. They're walking around that class, but the idea that at a glance they can see, oh, group 2, okay, you're stalling a little bit. Make sure you ask me a question if you need something. We got a photography class. The classroom is just insane the way it was built. It was built 20, 30 years ago. The teacher can't see all the kids. She's roaming around, but she's able to look, on her device and make sure all the kids are working. So I think for us, what comes in the future, we are asking that question. Let's make sure what we spend our dollars on are, for the most part, something we will continue to use, and not just continue to use because it's there, because it replaces a notebook or a pencil, but make sure it really breaks that bell schedule. Make sure it's something that redefines the way we're doing education. I think there's a lot of us who've talked about how to redefine education. We all see a lot of the gaps. I think it's great for keynotes at conferences, but when you come back to school, it's hard to do, right? And COVID has shown us that we can do it. And so I would say let's just push. It's going to be a struggle. A lot of people are going to want to go back to the same old, but let's push that and figure out how to make it a reality.
Thank you. Anyone else before we go into our last takeaway questions? Tam, Jamie?
Yeah, I'd like to just add a small bit about, upcoming purchases, especially with this one-time funding. Obviously there's a lot of district priorities. Some districts are, renting or building more buildings or, trailers because they just don't have enough space, for example. But in terms of technology infrastructure, one thing that surprised me this year, we were one of the districts that from day one offered in-person learning throughout the day. So full day hybrid. So half the kids ended up coming into school, the other half were at home. I'll give it to our instructors. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they've been doing it all year. It's remarkable. I don't have the cognitive, capacity to do this, but they pulled it off and it's amazing. That being said, the way that students are using devices now has completely changed, and it's taxing the infrastructure. So we're seeing, 20 kids in a room, because they're not all back. Let's say in an area with 4 classrooms, and they're on these collaborative tools all day. And so even though we have right now the latest and greatest Wi-Fi, it's bogging down. And so, I think that there's a lot of districts around that haven't got to this level of students actually coming into class, but now they all got a device and they're all using collaborative tools. And it's not high bandwidth, it's just every single device is using a small amount of continuous bandwidth. And when it comes to something like video and audio, you want that to be jitterless, right? So just to consider, as we move forward with infrastructure spending, Wi-Fi connectivity, all of a sudden has the typical behavior has changed. As Matt said, it's no longer, even if they use it, they take it out for an hour and then they put it back into the cart. It's going to be all day. So we definitely need to prioritize our network infrastructure after we come back.
That's great. So I'd love to sort of do start wrapping up and do takeaways. You've shared so much, so many takeaways, so many salient points for anybody listening and everything else. We would love to sort of have each of you share just a thought or two that you'd want this audience to take away and think about as we prepare for what's to come in our futures. Kris, if I can have you kick us off here.
I'd be happy to. I really have been thinking about this a lot, and how to get the word out for everyone to think about it is, what are those things that we just cannot let go of? What is it that our students are doing that we never even considered the possibility that they would be doing at this time? And it's going to be a little different at every grade level, but I think it's going to be bigger than we had ever imagined. When you talk to kindergarten teachers about what their students are capable of doing, and they never would have even given them the opportunity to try it previously, just they had to, that the kids have come to that and they've met the challenge. And so I think we have a little bit further to go than we even thought. But just how do we calibrate that as we welcome everyone back? How do we not let go of those grand new things that we learn, not in the best of circumstances, but we have such an ability now to take ourselves in that next step. And how disappointing it would be if we let some of those things go. So students didn't have those opportunities any longer. So I just, that will be my struggle for the next few months, is making sure that we can capture that. It's like capturing the lightning bug in the jar and being able to like keep it going, you know, and share it with others, because it is so exciting to see folks taken to that next level, even when they didn't know they had to be there. So, but that would be my big takeaway.
Thank you, Kris. That's really well said. Thank you. Tam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, just one thing that I've reflected over this year was, you know, even though the pandemic has pulled us apart, it's actually brought us together. And so, you know, the different business groups that we have, the teachers, curriculum, all of a sudden they realize, hey, you know, IT, technology, you know, ed tech and technology, you had these services all along. You were there to support. Was this already there in your catalog? Oh, I didn't know that. And so, you know, we are definitely inventing new things and innovating, but at the same time, it's great to see that the rest of the district is really just realizing what support and offerings we have, and they've been there. So I think that, again, we make lemonade out of lemons, and that's definitely one of the greatest points of this year. So
Great. Thank you, Tam. Matt?
Yeah, I would say just confidence. We do a survey of our students, our parents, and our teachers, and one of the things the survey hones in on is just how confident are you to be a great and, you know, instructional teacher. As a student, what is the type of instruction you're getting, and how confident that you are able to do your work? And it centers on a lot of things. Do you have the support when you need it? Do you have the knowledge just in time when you need to access it? Are you comfortable with trying new things? And our scores have always been decent, never really stellar. You've got those top 10% teachers that they just seem to be able to do everything, right? And then you got your mainstream who struggle with different things. And so when all this hit, our survey came up, and so we took the survey. So, okay, let's see. We were expecting all our scores to go down. They actually went up, and they went up a huge amount. We're trickling up maybe 3-4% each year. I think one of the metrics went up by like 10, 15, 20%. And it was our teachers. And one thing that we kind of took away was, wow, all this investment in PD and devices and choose your own adventure for our staff, you know, come in and do an online course or whatever. It's paid off, because I think a lot of the top 10%ers were willing to use it, but most mainstream people are like, I've got a job to do, and I go home and I've got kids and other things and more things to do. I don't have time to play with all the gadgets. But they actually, when they were forced to, they did amazingly well. So, and I've heard that from districts all over. So I would say, yeah, when we come back, hopefully we'll have a really wonderful sense of energy and confidence that we can pretty much take on anything. There's certainly gaps and areas where we all wish we could do better, and we will look back at things and figure out how to reach a lot of those individual families and students that had a real rough time. But I think we definitely are coming out of this with a sense that boy, there's almost nothing we can do if we're willing to look outside our traditional box of what school is. So
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. And Jamie, finally.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really thinking about this, as we all do. Just what do we walk away with? What do we want to remember? And I think just reflecting on this year, it really is about so much has been overcome. so much has come from just the resiliency of all of our staff, our students, our teachers, our parents, everybody just believing, this is possible. And we joked about things like it only took a pandemic to, as Kris said, launch an LMS, or for Tam to roll out PCs to all students. And so what do we continue when we think about that, just knowing that we can be open to anything? And I really like what Kris said earlier. We go in with a preset mind about what we think a tool is going to do and how it's going to be used. And just be ready to be surprised and be open to that, because what you sign up for or expected to do, just be ready for your users, your teachers, your parents to have a new suggestion and make it even better. And one concrete example I can give with paper is we, as Kris said, we rolled it out to teachers, lukewarm reception. It was one more thing to take on. But I opened up a session one morning and I saw a student join before school and he said, I need to study for a test. Can you help me? And the tutor's like, sure. And I would never have thought of paper being used that way. It was more, I have a problem, I'm going to come to you. And I think another example is we put webcams in the classroom for the teachers as they came back because we reopened. And I said, the kids aren't going to want to see each other. They have their cameras off. That's not going to matter. Guess what? The kids love seeing each other. They want the cameras on in the classroom and the kids cameras on at home to see each other. So again, just be ready to be surprised. Don't be closed-minded to what the users are going to do with the tech you provide.
It's incredible. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't even know how we're going to do recaps, but we will somehow do a recap of this conversation and share the recording. But I really, really want to take the time to thank you for just an incredible, lively conversation. For everyone listening in, I hope you enjoyed today, and we will be following up with additional information. And as the teams posted, we do have one more of these next week, all about equity. We're kind of closing with that. We wanted to talk about the nitty-gritty of cost and infrastructure, but as so many of you said, ultimately this is about instruction. It's about providing access to everybody that needs it, and not really being able to leave anybody out. And so that's going to be a big part of the conversation for us next week. So please tune in. And again, thank you so much for taking the time, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.